Dear students, good morning. I was quiet for a long time, at least 6 months. The reason is I was busy with doing one SWAYAM course on MOOC. I have done that on income tax. I'll be sharing the link and all in this platform. You can also join if you are interested to learn that subject. So now we are starting a new subject, that is business law. In this module, we will be checking the sources of business law. Now, why law is important? If you think about that, why we need rules and regulations? We know that man's interests are bound to conflict with each other because man is a social being, or we have to live in a society. We have to interact with our colleagues, we have to interact with our family, we have to interact with the religious places, we have to interact with the government, the place where we work. So many interactions are there. So if my interest may conflict with somebody else. So it's very necessary that we should have certain form of control. Now, this control should be effective. Then you have to see that these controls are effective. If you trace the history, these controls are effective from very old time. It is as old as mankind. So that is the importance of law. Now, meaning of law. If you take the meaning of law, it's the rule of human conduct. I've already explained. People will react or people will behave in different way. So it's a behavior, rule of human conduct devised by the legislature and enforced by the judiciary. So if you are breaking the rules, if you are not following the rules, there will be consequences because certain rules and regulations are enforced by the judiciary. Say for example, if it's traffic rules or violations in the Companies Act or any advertisement which we are giving which is against the rules and regulations, everything, these rules are in place, so we have to face the consequences. Now, if you see the definition of law, Professor Gray has defined law as the state or of any recognized body of men composed of the rules which the courts, that is the judicial organs of that body, lay down for their determination of their legal rights and duties. So again, it's emphasizing that it's imposing certain form of control. It's human contact, human behavior, and judicial organs have again emphasized this. So the consequences will be there if you are not following the same. Now, what are the features of law? Features of law, if you know that it's a set pattern. See, for example, when we check the advertisements, Monopolies Restrictive Trade Practices Act or Companies Act, certain form of control is there. How they'll advertise, if they'll violate the terms and conditions regarding issue of shares or any discount on shares or calculating the share value of shares, consequences will be there. So set patterns are designed by each and every rule. Then the important thing you have to remember, whoever violating that, they have to face the consequences. So the fear of consequences will make people to obey the rules and regulations. Now, an important point you have to remember about the knowledge of law. Ignorantia juris non excusat. It's a Latin term. You have to remember that ignorance of law is not an excuse. When you live in a country, we have to follow the rules and regulations of that country. How you will know that? It may be from the social media. It may be from the educational institutions. You might have learned it from home. Your parents might have taught. Your teachers might have taught. So we know the rules and regulations. Whatever the changes the government is making, we will come to know about that through our knowledge, through our education, or through our awareness. If you're traveling to a foreign country, then also this rule will be applicable. If you say that I'm from a different country, I'm traveling, I'm a traveler, I'm a tourist, this will not help you to escape the rules and regulations. When you're traveling to a foreign country, it's your duty to find out the rules and regulations before you travel, either from the travel agent or you read about that or from the website, or you ask people how to do that. So this is very important. When you're traveling to a foreign country, you should be aware of the rules and regulations. If you violate the rules and regulations, there also you will have the consequences. We have examples like Dubai, Singapore and all. They will have strict rules and regulations. So it's our duty to follow the rules and regulations even if you are entering the country as a tourist. Now, I'll explain what are the sources of business law. How business law originated in this form, what we are experiencing as business law, how it's originated. There are five sources we can say that. One is the common law, second is equity, third is the law merchant, fourth is the statute law, and fifth is the case law. So these are the sources of law I am going to explain in detail. Now, what is common law? Common law, you know that Britishers were ruling our country. For a long time, they were ruling the country. So they followed certain rules and regulations in their country. So that is the Britishers brought certain rules and regulations to our country. Because right from the East India Company, when they want to have trade, their interest was to make money. So when they want to enter into transactions, they brought their rules and regulations which they were following in their country. So those laws, English community, whatever they followed, they acquired that name also, and it became the common law, because that were the common law followed in our country. Though it was imposed by the Britishers who were ruling our country at that time, it was known as the common law. So that became legal principles. Now also, if you see our system, our education is based on British system, our banking structure, our insurance structure, or everything is based on the British system. So from wherever we want changes, we are amending the rules and regulations, or we are amending the act. But it's basically the British system we are following. Now the second source of law is the equity. Now equity, see, there were rulers at that time, or king at that time, even before independence. So what they used to do, that if two parties are in conflict, they have a fight or they have an argument, they want to resolve certain things. So what they will do, they will go to the king or the chancellor at that time. So they will go, a dissatisfied suitor will go to the chancellor. Why they are going to that? They have the higher authority. So if they will go and plead their case before that, so the king or the chancellor will call them. So then they will present the petitions to the king. So this was known as the court of chancery. This authorities, the rule or the king or the chancellor will hear the petitions from both sides, and they will give a relief to the suitors, whoever coming there with the dissatisfaction. So the reliefs granted by the chancellery were known as equitable remedies. So whatever the king or the chancellor will decide at that time, that will be the equitable decision. So that is why it's called as equity. Now the third is the law merchant. So law merchant, you know that Britishers, when they came to our country, their interest was to trade, to make money. So they came with the East India Company. So when they will trade with the Britishers, when they want to trade, they will with our people, they need to have certain rules and regulations. Whatever business rules and regulations, whatever they were following in that country, they were following. See, whether it is regarding the payment, if it's delayed payment, or if it's how to collect the payment, all that, because they brought that whatever rules and regulations they were following in that country, they continued to impose that in our country also. So that is the, now also we know that certain group of merchants, they have their own rules and regulations in doing their business. So the law merchant is the independent body of customs, whatever the traders are doing. So then these are imposed for the commercial transactions. A group of cement dealers, a group of builders, any group for that matter, group of vegetable dealers, group of petroleum products, petroleum dealers, or anybody for that matter. Some transactions, some rules and regulations are applicable for their group. They will be following that. So this origin is from the Britishers when they came with the East India Company to trade with our people in our country. So whatever rules and regulations they were following for their business in their country, they started imposing or practicing in our country. So this is how this act or idea got into practice. So this till now, whenever traders are doing that business for specific group of people, they have their rules and regulations. And this, wherever it is required, sometimes it's ratified by the court of law. Wherever it is required, if they are violating the rules and regulations of our country. See, for example, if a particular group of people, if they are violating the terms and conditions of keeping books of accounts, We know that in our country, we have to follow certain rules and regulations for writing or keeping the books of accounts. If one community is keeping totally against the rules and regulations of a country, court has got every right to interfere in that. They will make wherever changes are required, they will do that. So this law merchant is particularly related to the merchants tribunals. So that will be applicable for the particular group of merchants, maybe cement dealers, builders, or petroleum dealers, or vegetable dealers, or animal rights, or anything like that. Particular group of people, this will be applicable. Now then the statute law. Statute law is very important. We have to remember that the term statute means it's compulsory. It's imposed by the parliament. Either in the parliament or in the state legislature, these acts are passed. That meaning it will be applicable for everyone living in the country. See, for example, Securities and Exchange Board of India Act, Companies Act, Limited Liability Act, Limited Liability Partnership Act in 2008. Any Consumer Protection Act 2019, Environment Protection Act, Competition Act, any act if you take that, these are passed in the parliament. So this will be applicable right from Kashmir to Kanyakumari. Whoever living in the country, living in India, these rules and regulations will be applicable. So this will nullify the decisions of the court. When parliament has got the supreme right, when they will decide that, it will be decided and it will be applicable for everyone living in the country. Imagine a state want to impose certain things. Karnataka State Electricity Board, that will be passed in the Karnataka State Legislature. It is not passed in the Parliament. Whatever is applicable for the entire country, it is imposed in the Parliament. Whatever is particularly applicable for a state, it will be passed in the state legislature. Then it will be applicable for those who are living in that state. See, for example, Karnataka budget, it's passed in the Karnataka Assembly. Whereas union budget, that income tax, it will be presented and passed in the Parliament. It will be applicable for everyone living in the country. Now we'll come to the case law. Case law is the power of the court of law. So if you want to file a case against somebody, first we will start with the district level. Then if you are getting a decision, if you are not happy with that, you are going to the High Court. If you are not happy with the High Court decision, it's going to the Supreme Court. So this is how we are going to implement the rules and regulations in our country. So whatever the decision of the Supreme Court will be final and it will be binding for both the parties. Beyond that, there is no appeal possible. So case law is the power of court of law, and decisions of the Supreme Court of India will be final and it will be binding on both the parties. There cannot be any argument later. So this is what I want to explain in this module. So we have seen the definition of law, features of law, why law is needed, what are the sources of law, and how we have got this system, legal system in our country, how it's originated through 5 different sources. And one important thing you have to remember is the ignorantia. Ignorance of law is not an excuse. So this is very important. Even if within the country or outside the country, as a citizen, you have to follow the rules and regulations. This will be applicable even if you are traveling to a foreign country. You should know the rules and regulations. And as the duties, when we are as a responsible citizen, we have to follow the rules and regulations. That will be good and it will be that will be important for the smooth functioning of the country. This is what I want to explain in this module. Thank you for listening. Happy learning. Thank you.